I once had a panic attack on a Tinder date. There wasn't a third.
I was due for a coffee date and I was so anxious. I was completely trashed on Valley.
When I'm on the date, when I'm going to the date, when I'm thinking about the date, I'm just like freaking out in my head.
And I just get like a super dry mouth and I get like super sweaty and awkward. I keep having to pee.
Dating while going through a mania as well. I remember feeling like I was God.
I was just having casual sex all the time, probably because I had depression.
You know, sometimes you're sad and you're horny.
I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety and OCD.
Bipolar mood disorder.
Post-traumatic stress.
Complex PTSD.
Schizoaffective disorder.
I've suffered depression.
Depression and anxiety.
Anxiety.
Anxiety and disordered eating.
I'm Katarina and I live with mental health issues.
Dating apps like Tinder are really interesting because you have that anxiety about like, oh, no one will want me, and then the app just proves it.
Online dating to me is so superficial. Those pretentious profiles I find is like, I like to walk on the beach, I'm a coffee snob.
A guy like holding up a fish.
Women, bikini shots, cars, the gym, topless, all that. Actually, no, I'm probably guilty of having a topless shot or two.
Talking themselves up like they're so fit, exercise all the time, they love the outdoors. Be real, people, please. Basically, the dating thing is way intimidating.
Well, like, should I be just myself or should I just be this like nice, manually blinking and breathing man who likes to talk about songs and pizza?
Everybody wants to appear like normal and desirable on a first date. You know, first dates are really triggering.
So if you've never had a panic attack, lucky you, you'll always remember your first. Your body goes into like survival mode. You start to like hyperventilate.
You have a rapid heartbeat, struggling to breathe.
Your pupils dilate.
Your hands start to tremble, you start to sweat.
I get what they call an aura migraine.
I would feel the need to cry constantly.
I feel like I'm racing with my words.
Sometimes it's the feeling of dread.
Feeling really like just like on edge.
And I wouldn't be able to sleep. That would just be in a cycle of a lack of sleep, causing more stress and causing more panic attacks.
On a bad week or a bad day, I'm going to have 3 or 4 panic attacks. They come, you've got no control.
I would be paranoid about everything, like, oh, he didn't text me back, or he didn't call me. Is something wrong? Is it me? So I was always thinking like something was wrong with me.
You can overread too many things into like quite an innocuous thing. Like, oh, they're taking a bit of a while to reply. Oh, must be because I'm a piece of shit.
Ghosting. It would be such a trigger for anxiety. I think I would just, be, what did I do wrong? Why did they say that? What could I have done better?
Oh yeah, I've ghosted people. Dick move. Highly regret.
Yes, I have had to be that person. When it comes down to it, I chicken out and just be like, yeah, I'll call you. Sorry.
Going out for a simple meal is always fraught because you're always thinking about, am I going to be judged? What am I going to look like eating this? How is this going to impact on the date?
When I was dating, I was actually experiencing mania for the first time. I'd met someone on the train and we decided to go to a play at the Opera House. And I remember sitting in the mezzanine level, looking down and feeling like I was God, which was just evidently the chemical imbalance in my brain.
I met my first husband while studying at university. When the marriage ended, I started casually dating. It actually made me feel really liberated. And back then, my vagina was still tight, so I just felt unstoppable. In hindsight now, I think it was probably because I had depression and I was majorly insecure about myself. So yeah, I was using sex as a way to not only just liberate myself, but also as maybe a coping mechanism.
Like all cool adults, I was a depressed teenager. It means I have character now. Also, like my medications meant that I was incapable of horniness.
My libido before meds was pretty high. I'm a bit of a horn bag. Especially after my periods, I would be like on heat. I would be like, cock. Well, I wouldn't really be doing it, it was just in my head. So now, yeah, being on the meds, it's made me chilled a bit.
When I'm depressed, I don't feel like doing it at all. Like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, I'm low. And when I'm high, I feel like doing it with everyone. Everyone looks like a good option. You all look good to me. Like, I mean, I'm married now. When I'm manic and I want sex all the time, I hit him so hard. By the time he got home, it was like bang, 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 bang. Like, the poor guy. Being in a mania can make you feel hypersexual. So I've only been hypersexual once. I'd gone to the markets and I was specifically looking for one seller. And when I couldn't find him, everybody else looked attractive. The guy with the hairy knuckles, he looked attractive. I wanted to have sex with everyone on the market floor and have a massive orgy. Sex is so readily available to you that you'd make some really bad decisions.
Dating with anxiety, you kind of like also hope that the other person also has anxiety, because what type of person just feels good about themselves and walks around believing in themselves? You know what I mean?
Like if I was dating someone, I wouldn't be like, hey, guess what? I got a mental health issue. Do you? Like, nah.
It's not something you generally bring up straight away. You know, it's probably not a, hey, you know, I'm crazy and sometimes I, you know, cry myself to sleep for no reason.
I've never explicitly disclosed having anxiety over Tinder, but I kind of feel like my whole persona just kind of like radiates like a high resting level of anxiety. So like attracts like.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in a profile just because it's not a person's identity as far as, you know, who they really are and stuff.
I rarely say straight off the bat, hey, I've got mental health issues, because like most people have a misconception about it and they think, ooh, he's up.
I didn't really know how to explain it because sometimes you just don't know where to start. It's overwhelming for anybody.
The right time is hard to know in a relationship, but like if it's somebody that you just met on a first date and they're like telling you their deepest traumas and secrets, that's a big red flag.
I told my partner Andrew pretty much straight away that I had bipolar mood disorder because I think that helps them understand you better.
I'm an open book. Don't hide anything. There's no use hiding things.
I don't push it. I don't force myself to talk about something when I'm not ready to. And I also don't keep it a secret either. If I'm not feeling secure in the relationship to be open and vulnerable about my history of trauma and how it still plays out in my life now, they're probably not the person for me.
Do I think I could be with a partner who doesn't have anxiety? No, because I already have a girlfriend. When I first met her, she has social anxiety and she was at a party. So I looked at her and I went, oh, she has anxiety. Once you have anxiety, you're kind of like good at recognizing it in other people. It's like, oh, you hyperventilate sometimes, I hyperventilate sometimes. Like I've been to therapy, she's been to therapy, you know, like our emotional admin is quite efficient. One thing that really does help Ingrid and I's anxiety is having a dog, because he loves us so goddamn much.
Sometimes I feel sorry for people who have fallen in love with someone with bipolar mood disorder, just because it's so taxing on the relationship. My partner is really great. If I didn't have him, then I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, brush my teeth or comb my hair or take a shower or do any of those things. He makes sure that I stay mentally well.
Like we're a power couple in that sense of, you know, I've got complex PTSD, my partner has ADHD, and in a way that is like the worst match ever in life because everything that he does triggers me, right? And everything that I do requires him to have a bit of a working memory. So it's really, really, really hard, but it's kind of freeing in that I don't have to worry about being judged. And then he knows that I'm constantly accommodating his ADHD. You know, there is something to imperfect love.
He's been with me on the journey of the medication, the counselling and everything. So he was very supportive. I still feel a bit uncomfortable telling him things. So as part of, you know, being a lot more open, I thought, hey, I have to share this with him.
I would definitely date people with mental health issues again. This time just working on boundaries and working on making sure that they're also somebody that is focused on their own growth and seeks help when they need it.
My dad thought that I was possessed by the devil. My dad had thought that my watching 6 Feet Under had given me bipolar, so he hid the DVDs underneath the house, and I found them years later.
When I started going to a psychologist and then I came out to my family, they were like, oh, like your psychologist like put these thoughts into your head, you wouldn't have done this.
Mental health wasn't really something that was discussed in my family. There was absolutely a concept of, hey, if I fell down and broke my leg, that's real, but it just felt hard to say, hey, I'm having these feelings, you know, can you help me?
I was pretty much taught to be a quiet, good girl, do your homework, study, don't date, and don't cry. Pretty much been bottling it in for, I don't know, about 30 years or more.
When I tell people I'm experiencing anxiety, they generally tell me, why do you have anxiety for? You know, you have a job, you speak English, you don't have any like illnesses, nothing. But people with anxiety, we're not sad, we're not miserable. We're just someone who constantly worries. I don't really talk about anxiety with the Afghan community. I mean, as someone with anxiety, you tend to feel embarrassed by it. You feel like you're a burden to others. So that's what stops us, I guess, from wanting to share it with, you know, society.
The stigma's like, this person's mentally ill. Oh, they might go psycho on me. Oh, danger, warning, Will Robinson, yeah.
The stigma is lessened, but it's also increased on a personal level because it's something that, you know, I know that I should be working on. So therefore, there's the stigma of, well, why aren't you controlling it currently, you know, when it gets too much for you?
My family are Vietnamese refugees, and they came to Australia right before I was born and suffered a lot of trauma, you know, from the war as well. And being refugees, like being on a boat in the middle of nowhere is hard. And I've always wondered, like, you know, why don't they ever talk about it? And I think it's just because they're bottling it all in, because maybe they think that it's a coping mechanism.
I think in the Vietnamese community as well, it just doesn't seem like something that is acknowledged. Certain family members think that I'm cured of bipolar, but what they don't realise is it's something that I'll live with till the day I die. Bipolar mood disorder can be hereditary. I often think that my mum had bipolar mood disorder and she wasn't ever diagnosed. My mum had passed away. I think that if she had had the mental health care that I have access to, her life would be much longer.
Mental health was a big taboo in my family. So that, you know, stigma around getting help or getting consistent help has made me do the opposite, to where I really want to continue therapy even if I'm feeling fine, to be at my best every day.
Therapy helped a lot because my psychologist was also a woman from a Muslim background. Mental health is like seen as like a white problem, but just because somebody doesn't believe in it doesn't mean you aren't experiencing a very real illness. When it's not really acknowledged by your community and it's treated like it doesn't exist, it's becomes so invalidating. And being queer, I think, does have a double impact on my mental health, because having to justify your sexuality over and over to people is pretty difficult. Somebody was like to me, how can you be gay and Muslim? And I was like, I literally am standing here in front of you being both of those things.
Well, I mean, if a person is 100% opposed to dating someone or being with someone that's got mental health issues, I mean, you're gonna have a really hard time finding a partner, because everybody has something and you're not living in a rom-com.
Everyone experiences mental health issues at some stage in their life. So dating someone with mental health issues means dating everyone. I would say to my younger self that you deserve love even if you feel unworthy of it.
So the last couple of years, I've started to open up a lot more, even with my parents as well. So it just made me think, like, why am I fearful this whole time? Like, why did I bottle everything in? People are a lot more understanding than we think.
I just told women I've got PTSD, told them I was an ex-soldier. I'm very proud of that. If you can find someone that accepts your piece of craziness and you can accept their piece of craziness and you can coexist in this little universe of your own, it's fantastic.
In the future, I really hope that people will be more supportive when someone shares their story with anxiety to them.
No one should have to deal with mental illness alone. It really is a community effort. It's a team effort.
If you have a mental illness and you're looking for love, don't let your mental illness stop you. Just be you. Be true to yourself. It's amazing when you put yourself out there, out of your comfort zone, what you'll find. I believe in you.
If you need immediate assistance or support, contact Beyond Blue on 1300 22 4636 or beyondblue.org.au or Lifeline on 13 11 14 or lifeline.org.au.